Hey everyone, so for this Pride Month, if you're looking to read a gay thriller that seemingly hates gay men, have I got a book for you? I am unfortunately talking about Bathhouse by P.J. Vernon. So first up, the short, spoiler-free synopsis. Oliver goes to a bathhouse where he's going to cheat on his partner, Nathan. And there's a lot going into this. For one thing, Oliver has some self-destructive tendencies. He is a recovering addict. And there is this relationship between Oliver and Nathan, which is really well rendered. And one of the things I think is in favor of the book. I think there's a realistic dynamic going on there. And I did find it very interesting in the terms of this thriller. But he goes to this bathhouse. Something terrible happens there that turns Oliver's world upside down and leads to a thriller that I can't even really describe more of because it would ruin too much. And I want to give people the chance, if they want to check out this book, to check out this book without, spoilers. So first, let's get to the presentation. This is going to be a little bit different because this was an audiobook that I read, but I have seen this book in person, and I did really love the cover. I think it's really inventive and a pretty cool cover. It was one of the reasons why this, caught my eye whenever it came out. I think it's been a couple years. I don't really remember. And it's a great setup, for a erotic gay thriller, going to the bathhouse, the inherent danger of that, this added danger of it being an illicit affair sort of thing. It's a great setup. Character-wise, this is one of the things that makes this book really difficult to love, but not my main issue. And I don't have a problem with unlikable characters, honestly, but when you do that, in a book, it has an effect on the reader, right? If there's nothing for the reader to hold on to, it kind of makes the world of the book feel kind of dark and gross and bad, and you're like, why am I spending time here? And I think that there is a certain aesthetic or a certain style of thriller where that's entirely appropriate, and I think that's probably what Vernon is going for here. But it doesn't necessarily make a pleasant reading experience. So, as a choice for Pride Month, maybe not the best. And there's more reasons for that in a second, which I'll get into. Main two characters whose point of views we switch between are Oliver and Nathan. And both of them are kind of awful and insufferable in their own ways. I like flawed protagonists, and it may not help that the audio narration of Nathan in the audiobook I just found extremely irritating. And it wasn't the fault of the narrator. I think that they were, going for what the character needed to be, but the character was just so awful combined with that voice that every time we went back to his point of view, I really was like, oh boy. Oliver, is a recovering addict, so I have a lot of empathy for his perspective on things and some of the struggles he was going through. As one of the main characters in this book, and arguably I'd say the main character really, even though we go between Nathan and Oliver, he has no agency, he has no spine, and that is kind of the point of the book eventually. Once you start to really understand Oliver's and Nathan's relationship, it's very rough. It's rough reading, and not even like an interesting, pleasurable way. It kind of got a little repetitive, to be honest. And some of the descriptions kind of go on for a little too long. So even listening to this on audiobook, and I think at one point I upped it up to 1.5 speed, which I usually never do. But it just was like, okay, this is a thriller. I need a little more forward motion, basically. Because for me, the tension was being killed by the prose, essentially. Which leads us into the style or the prose of the work. And like I said, it got repetitive, and I think it's a little overly wordy. Other than that, I think, the author does a pretty good job of taking you through the story. So overall thoughts. I didn't really have a place to put this, so it's just going in my overall thoughts. But the thing that really just brought this down for me from a 3-star book to a 2-star book, again, is sort of what I talked about in that intro, which is there's a big strain of what I would call internalized homophobia running through this book. And I don't know, why that's there. I'm not saying that the writer has that, but certainly Oliver as a character has it. and it makes for a deeply unpleasant read on top of the characters who are difficult to like. Because Oliver continually, multiple times in the book, has a very disdainful view of gay culture, of gay men, and honestly, the book kind of makes him seem right because everybody is so terrible. Now you could say, okay, we're in a dark thriller, that's sort of normal, it makes sense, but again, it just makes for a very unpleasant reading experience. Being a book called Bathhouse, it feels weirdly sex negative as well. The bathhouse itself is not viewed in a positive light in any way, and the people inside of it are not positively portrayed. The owner, the worker, is not positively portrayed. Gay men going out to clubs are not positively portrayed. Clubs are not positively portrayed. There is one character who you might consider or sort of presented a little more femme. They are not positively portrayed. At the same time, I think if you can be less bothered by that than I am, maybe if I hadn't read this in Pride Month, it would feel less weird, and maybe I'd be getting something out of it that was different. But if you can look past some of those elements, I think that there are good parts of this book. But I would love to hear other people's opinions about this. Did you get something different from it than I did? Please comment or reply to this and let me know.